The greatest battlefield in the world is not in a war zone, it's in the mind. The most dangerous enemy you'll ever face is not your boss, not your ex, not even life's storms. It's your inability to control your thoughts. If you don't master your mind, it will master you. Your peace is your power. Your peace is your power. You see, in a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, where chaos is just one notification away, and where anxiety is being served with your morning coffee, peace becomes your greatest weapon. Not silence. Not pretending. I'm talking about the kind of peace that makes people around you wonder, how are they still calm when everything's falling apart? Let me tell you something, anyone can scream. Anyone can panic. It takes no discipline to lose control. But to remain calm when you could retaliate, to stay focused, when you could lash out, to hold your tongue when your emotions are begging to take over, that's power. That's a power most people will never understand because they've never trained for it. Peace isn't weakness. Peace is preparation. Peace is the result of rehearsing control in the shadows so you don't collapse in the spotlight. Think about it. How many situations have you walked into where someone else's chaos became your chaos? Not because it had to, but because you didn't have your peace protected. You absorbed their anger, you caught their energy, you matched their tone, and now you're exhausted over something that wasn't even yours to carry. I've learned that peace isn't just emotional, it's strategic. The most successful leaders don't lead from emotion, they lead from peace. When the pressure is high and time is short, they don't fold. Why? Because they've built their peace like a fortress, not a thin wall that collapses under criticism, but a deep foundation rooted in clarity, conviction, and vision. You've got to learn to guard your peace like it's your passport to greatness, because it is. Lose your peace and you lose your focus. Lose your focus and you lose your discipline. Lose your discipline and you sabotage the very future you're praying for. That's how powerful your peace is. You don't make clear decisions in panic. You don't hear purpose in noise, and you don't build legacy with a scattered mind. Let me give you a real example. Think about that one time you were about to send that angry text. You wrote it out. Your thumbs were moving faster than your brain. And then you paused, you reread it, you deleted it. That moment, that pause, that was peace winning. That was your spirit saying, we're not going to war over something that doesn't grow us. That's the version of you that's going to lead your life with intention, not reaction. I remember talking to someone who runs a high-pressure business, deadlines, clients, stress. One day I asked him, how do you keep it together when everything's falling apart? He looked at me and said, I learned early on that if I lose my calm, I lose my credibility. My clients trust me not because I'm always right, but because I'm always steady. That shook me, because in life, people may not remember your words, but they'll remember how you handled the storm. And if you can master your calm, you can command any room. Now here's the reality. Peace doesn't mean you're unaffected. It means you're undisturbed in your direction. Yes, you feel the tension. Yes, the thoughts still come. But you've trained yourself to rise above the noise. You've set a new standard. Not everything deserves my energy. Not every invitation to drama will receive my RSVP. And let's talk about relationships. Peace is power in your relationships too. When someone tries to trigger you with passive-aggressive comments, with manipulation, with their unresolved trauma, that's when your peace gets tested. That's when you show what you're really made of. Because anyone can clap back. But a wise person knows that clapping back may cost you the very progress you've been building in silence. Sometimes silence is not retreat, it's wisdom refusing to waste power. You've got to understand this, your emotional stability is your leadership. If your peace is unstable, your decisions will be impulsive, your communication will be reactive, and your results will be inconsistent. Calmness is a sign that your spirit has matured beyond validation. You no longer need to win every argument, you no longer need to defend every move. You know who you are, and that awareness protects your energy. Peace also gives you an edge in creativity. Think about it. When do your best ideas come? When you're in chaos or when your soul is still? Some of the most revolutionary inventions, breakthroughs, and innovations came during moments of deep inner clarity, not business, not panic, but peace. If you're always rushing, always multitasking, always anxious, you're robbing yourself of divine insight. A peaceful mind is a fertile ground for genius. So start building your peace intentionally. Make it a habit. Before you scroll, breathe. Before you react, pause. Before you reply, reflect. Peace is not what happens around you. Peace is what you command within you. It's your secret weapon. It's your invisible crown. It's the stillness in the storm that confuses the enemy, empowers your decisions, and elevates your presence. Train for it. Protect it. Honor it. Because your peace isn't just a vibe, it's your power. Control the first thought. You don't always choose the first thought that enters your mind, but you do choose whether it stays, grows, or dies. That's the battlefield where champions are made, right in the space between what enters your mind and what you allow to live there. That split second between thought and decision is where your entire future can shift. Here's what most people don't understand. The first thought is not always your truth. It's often your trauma. It's your fear. It's your pain whispering in disguise. The mind is like soil. Whatever gets planted first tries to take root. But the seed doesn't determine the outcome. The gardener does. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. You decide what thoughts get watered and what thoughts get uprooted. And if you don't learn how to challenge your first thoughts, they will challenge your peace, your power, and your purpose every single day. Let's bring this home. You wake up in the morning, and before you even get out of bed, your mind whispers, "You're not doing enough. You'll never catch up." That's the first thought. And if you don't stop it right there, it becomes the lens through which you see your entire day. You step into your morning already defeated. You drink your coffee with anxiety instead of strategy. You answer emails with panic instead of power. You're not living from reality. You're living from a thought you never questioned. But what if you paused? What if in that moment you said, "Wait a minute, who told me I'm behind? What truth is that thought built on? Is that fear talking, or is that fact?" That's mental maturity. That's what separates those who drift through life from those who dominate it. They interrupt the thought before the thought interrupts them. Your mind is a suggestion machine. It will offer you ideas based on past pain, on what you've been exposed to, on what you fear, not what you are destined for. Just because it feels urgent doesn't mean it's accurate. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it's true. First thoughts are like pop-up ads. They grab your attention, they offer shortcuts, but they often carry viruses. You've got to develop the discipline to close the window before it infects your system. Imagine you're about to walk into a job interview. Your first thought, what if they don't like me? What if I mess this up? That's fear offering you a seat at its table. But you don't have to sit there. You can respond, what if I'm exactly what this place needs? What if I bring value that can't be ignored? That's the difference. One person sees the same opportunity and crumbles. The other walks in and commands the room. Same setting, different mindset. Every battle you fight externally was first fought internally. The mind doesn't wait for things to go wrong to attack you. It often starts early, before the argument, before the diagnosis, before the business fails. It begins with a whisper, "You can't do this." And if you don't confront it, it will grow into a voice, then a belief, and finally a behavior. Let me tell you something powerful. Your thoughts are not facts. They're suggestions, and suggestions can be rejected. You don't have to believe every thought that shows up. You don't have to obey every emotion that screams. You have the right to interrogate your inner dialogue. Because the strongest people in the world are not those who never struggle with negative thoughts. They're the ones who never give those thoughts the final word. Think of your mind like an airport. Thoughts are planes coming in to land. But guess what? Not every plane has to land. You're the air traffic controller. If a thought is off course, you can say, redirect, reroute. Not today. But if you go on autopilot, those planes land and suddenly your runway, your focus, your energy is overcrowded with flights that don't serve your destiny. People who master the first thought are not more gifted. They're just more alert. They've trained their awareness. They pause before they believe. They ask, where did this thought come from? Does this align with my values, my purpose, my truth? And if it doesn't, they replace it. That's the secret. Don't just resist negative thoughts. Replace them. You can't just evict fear. You must invite clarity. You can't just reject anxiety. You must affirm peace. Have you ever been in a situation where someone said something sharp to you and your first thought was to snap back? That's instinct. But instinct unchecked can damage relationships. What if you trained yourself to pause, to breathe, to ask, is my reaction going to build or break? That's second thought. Intentional, grounded is where your maturity shows up. First thought is emotion. Second thought is wisdom. Growth is learning to wait for the second one before you act. This is why journaling, meditation, and stillness are so critical. They create space between thoughts. They give you room to challenge what your mind automatically throws at you. You can't master your mind if you're constantly distracted. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers your first thoughts will never offer. You are not what you think. You are what you do with what you think. You are not your first thought. You are the architect of your second response. Mastering your mind starts the moment you stop letting automatic thoughts drive intentional outcomes. You have to become the gatekeeper, the filter, the editor of your inner dialogue, because the first thought might be fear, but the second can be freedom. Respond, don't react. There is a difference between responding and reacting. A reaction is instant. It's raw, it's emotional, it comes without thought, without strategy, and often without wisdom. A response, on the other hand, is calculated, it's intentional, it's rooted in maturity and strength, not impulse and insecurity. The people who rise in life, in leadership, in relationships, they are not the ones who know how to react quickly, but the ones who know how to respond with clarity and purpose, even under pressure. Life will provoke you. People will test your peace. Situations will try to pull you out of character. And you have a choice in every moment to respond or to react. A reaction says, I'm a slave to what just happened. A response says, I'm in control of what happens next. Have you ever been in traffic and someone cuts you off? The instant urge is to react, to honk the horn, to yell, to maybe even do something petty to get back at them. But think about it, what did that reaction produce? More stress, more frustration, more distraction. But when you respond instead, when you take a breath, shift your focus back to the road and say, I'm not going to let someone else's recklessness disrupt my peace. You just won. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Reactions come from unprocessed emotions. Responses come from deep awareness. And here's what you must understand. People who constantly react are always exhausted. They're always drained because they are constantly being pulled in by every offense, every criticism, every disagreement, every bad mood of someone else. That is emotional slavery, when your peace is controlled by what's happening around you, not what's happening within you. Responding requires discipline, and discipline is the doorway to greatness. Because when you respond instead of react, you're choosing to lead yourself instead of being led by emotion. That's how you build influence. That's how you build trust. That's how you earn respect. Not because you shouted the loudest in the room, but because you stayed composed when the room went silent. Let's talk about real-life relationships. How many arguments could have been avoided if you responded instead of reacted? How many moments could have been salvaged if you just paused before speaking? That text message you sent in anger. That email you fired off because you felt disrespected. That decision you made just to prove a point. Those are all reactions. And reactions might feel good in the moment, but they often leave long-term damage in their wake. Think about the times you felt regret. Really think. Chances are, regret didn't come from the moment you paused. Regret came from the moment you didn't. Regret lives in the space where reaction outrun reflection. But growth lives in the space where response overcame emotion. I've met people who lost opportunities, not because they weren't gifted, but because they were too reactive. Someone gave them feedback, and instead of responding with humility, they reacted with ego. Someone disagreed with them, and instead of responding with curiosity, they reacted with defensiveness. They were so eager to protect their pride that they sabotaged their future. But responding doesn't mean you're passive. It doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It means you're powerful enough to remain composed while still communicating truth. A response says, I've thought this through. I know who I am. I don't need to raise my voice to raise the value of what I'm saying. That kind of calm, that kind of self-possession, it's magnetic. It draws respect. It commands the atmosphere. You ever notice how in a crisis, everyone looks to the person who's calm? Why? Because calmness looks like leadership. Calmness looks like wisdom. Calmness looks like clarity. But that calm didn't come from chance. It came from training. You've got to train your spirit to pause before you act. You've got to train your mind to evaluate before you speak. You've got to train your emotions to wait for your character to catch up. Even in business, especially in business, reaction can cost you more than money. It can cost you partnerships, reputations, and trust. I know leaders who lost deals because they reacted in meetings instead of responding with strategy. They let a disagreement derail the entire project. Why? Because ego reacted when vision should have responded. Start practicing the power of pause. When someone says something offensive, pause. When an email triggers you, pause. When things don't go your way, pause. That pause doesn't mean you're backing down. It means you're preparing to move forward with power. That pause gives you the space to remember who you are, what you stand for, and what the situation actually needs. It's in that pause that you ask the million-dollar question, is what I'm about to do going to serve my future or sabotage it? Because not every action is progress, not every word is necessary, and not every battle is worth fighting. Maturity is knowing that peace is sometimes louder than a perfectly delivered clapback. You have to understand that energy is expensive, and every reaction you give away is an investment you make. So the real question is, are you investing in a better outcome or just spending your strength on temporary emotion? Responding is legacy thinking. It's how you keep your reputation clean, your vision clear, and your soul protected. And the more you respond and not react, the more peace you create, not just around you, but within you. That's how leaders are born. Not in the moments where everything is easy, but in the moments where everything is tense. And you chose wisdom anyway. Train your triggers. Triggers are not your enemy. They are your teachers. The things that stir you, the words that offend you, the people who irritate you, they all point to something inside of you that still needs to be healed, disciplined, or understood. The problem is not that you get triggered. The problem is that you haven't trained your triggers. You've let them rule you instead of refine you. Every trigger is a signal, a mirror, a message. It's telling you this part of you is still tender, still vulnerable, still unprotected. You can run from it. You can avoid it. You can blame everybody else for it. But until you train it, it will control how you react, how you feel, and how far you go in life. Because no matter how talented, how gifted, how intelligent you are, if your triggers run wild, they will sabotage every opportunity you were built to handle. Think about it. Someone gives you constructive feedback, and instead of learning from it, you shut down or lash out. Why? Because you haven't trained your trigger around correction. Someone forgets to acknowledge you, and suddenly you feel invisible, angry, or unloved. That's not about them. It's about something within you that still needs to be secured. When you are constantly triggered by things outside of you, it's a sign that the power is no longer in your hands. And the minute your peace is external, your growth becomes optional. Let me tell you, the most powerful person in the room, is not the loudest, not the one with the title, not even the one with the money. It's the one who can sit in the storm and not let the storm sit in them. That's the one who's trained their triggers. That's the one who refuses to let old wounds define new moments, because life will always poke you. Life will always test you. And if every poke gets a reaction, you'll be led like a puppet by circumstances instead of leading your life with authority. You've got to be able to recognize the trigger before it takes over. You've got to be able to say, I feel that fire rising, but I refuse to let it burn my bridge. I hear that voice from my past creeping in, but I'm not giving it power today. I feel the urge to shut down or blow up, but I choose to stay present, stay wise, and stay in control. That's training. That's mental conditioning. You don't become emotionally intelligent by accident. You become emotionally intelligent by confrontation and consistency. Let's go deeper. You're in a relationship. You have a disagreement. Your partner raises their voice, and instantly your mind races back to moments when you were dismissed, overlooked, or disrespected. But this person in front of you is not your past. This moment is not your trauma. Yet if your triggers aren't trained, you'll treat the one who loves you like the ones who hurt you. That's how untrained triggers poison trust. You stop seeing what's in front of you and start projecting what's behind you. Or maybe it happens at work. Your colleague takes credit for your idea. You feel heat rise in your chest. The old you wants to react publicly, loudly, with vengeance. But then you pause, you breathe, you remind yourself, I don't need to be loud to be heard. I don't need to be petty to protect my value. That's power. That's a trained trigger in real time. That's the kind of composure that creates legacy moves instead of temporary wins. You've got to develop what I call emotional muscle memory. Just like an athlete trains their body to respond under pressure, you train your emotions to respond with wisdom. That means rehearsing peace, practicing pause, exercising patience. It doesn't happen overnight. But every time you refuse to let a trigger take the wheel, you strengthen your internal power. You stop being a slave to your history and start becoming a master of your destiny. We don't train our triggers by avoiding hard conversations. We train them by walking through those conversations with maturity. We don't train them by silencing how we feel. We train them by feeling deeply but choosing wisely. We don't train them by blaming others for how we react. We train them by owning our responses, no matter how unfair the situation may be. That's maturity. That's leadership. That's strength under control. And let me tell you, people notice. People trust the person who doesn't explode under pressure. They gravitate to the one who can be challenged and still stay centered. That kind of discipline opens doors. It makes you promotable. It makes you magnetic. It sets you apart. Not because you've never been triggered, but because you've mastered how to handle it. Even the smallest daily moments give you training ground. The slow cashier, the friend who forgets to reply, the partner who says something insensitive, the delay, the detour, the denial. Each one is an opportunity to ask yourself, am I going to let this moment control me, or am I going to control how I grow through it? Because every time you choose control, you reinforce your greatness. You break the cycle, you rise above the noise. You are not weak because you get triggered. You are human. But you become powerful the moment you decide not to be led by those triggers anymore. You become powerful when you start asking the question, what is this teaching me about myself? Instead of, why is this happening to me again? That shift right there, that's where transformation begins. Use breathing as a weapon. Most people underestimate the power of breath. They think breathing is just something you do to stay alive. Inhale, exhale, repeat. But those who rise, those who conquer chaos and stay grounded when the world shakes, they know something different. They know that breath is not just survival, it's a weapon, a secret weapon. A tool that can shift your state, command your mind, and calm a storm within seconds. You can't always control what comes at you, but you can always control how you breathe through it. Think of a moment when you were overwhelmed. Maybe your phone was ringing, the emails were piling up, someone disappointed you, and suddenly your chest tightened, your thoughts scrambled, and you felt like you were sinking. That's not just stress, that's a body reacting to chaos. But here's what most people don't realize, that the body listens to the breath. And if you can slow your breathing, you can slow your thinking. If you can slow your thinking, you can seize back control from panic. Breathing isn't weakness, it's strategy. In moments of tension, most people hold their breath. And when you hold your breath, you hold your power hostage. But the moment you consciously breathe, deeply, intentionally, your body gets the message. I'm safe, I'm calm, I'm in control. Your breath doesn't ask permission from your fear, it overrides it. That's why warriors use breathing before battle. Athletes use breathing before the final shot. And leaders use breathing before they walk into a room to shift the atmosphere. Try it. When life feels loud, when emotions rise like waves threaten to crash over your mind, stop. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Do it again. It sounds too simple, too small to matter. But so does the rudder on a ship until you see it steer the entire vessel through a storm. Your breath is your rudder. It doesn't remove the storm, but it keeps your direction intact. Let's get real. In relationships, how many arguments could have been diffused with a breath before a response? That 1 second of inhale could have been the difference between saying something you regret and saying something that brings healing. That breath could have saved a friendship. It could have preserved dignity. But when you don't breathe, you burst. You spill words that were never supposed to be spoken. You react from emotion instead of responding with wisdom. I've sat in meetings where tensions were high, millions of dollars on the line, egos flaring, opinions clashing, and the person who won the room was the one who breathed before they spoke. That breath gave them space to think, to listen, to lead. Because while everyone else was drowning in urgency, they created clarity in silence. Breath is the language of composure. And what about your daily life? You wake up late, your kid's crying, the traffic's bad, the deadline is looming, your mind starts racing before your feet even touch the floor. You're already losing the day. But if you would just stop, even for 60 seconds, and breathe with intention, you would change your chemistry. You'd remind your nervous system that you're not in danger, you're just under pressure. And there's a big difference. We've been trained to think action is always the solution. Hustle, push, respond. But sometimes the most powerful action is stillness. A breath is stillness in motion. It's the space between impulse and wisdom. It's the boundary between chaos and peace. It's the weapon that nobody can take from you because it's built into your being. You don't need a mentor to use it. You don't need permission. You just need awareness. And let me tell you something, the more responsibility you carry, the more pressure you'll face. Leaders are not immune to stress. They're just more equipped to handle it. And their breath is part of that equipment. The deeper you breathe, the deeper you think. The deeper you think, the better you choose. And the better you choose, the more you elevate. Even in moments of fear, especially in fear, your breath is your rescue. Before the speech, before the confrontation, before the risk, before the leap of faith, breathe. Not shallow, panic gasps, not nervous pacing, but controlled, powerful breaths that tell your body, we've been here before, we can do this. That's how you command the room without saying a word. That's how you walk into your next level without letting fear lead the way. You have no idea how much power you've left on the table simply because you didn't pause to breathe. You let the emotion ride the wave. You let the pressure choke your clarity. But now you know breath is a weapon. Use it when you're angry. Use it when you're nervous. Use it when you feel lost. When life is spinning, when the stakes are high, your breath is not a sign of weakness. It's a signal of control, a quiet rebellion against the chaos trying to live rent-free in your mind. You want to master your mind, master your breath. You want to stay calm in any storm. Make your breath your anchor. Let it pull you back into your body, back into the moment, back into the present where peace lives and wisdom breathes. Because the world will give you 1,000 reasons to panic, but one deep breath can give you the power to choose peace instead. Anchor to a vision, not emotions. Emotions are powerful, but they were never designed to drive your life. They were designed to inform it. And if you let them drive, you'll end up in places you were never meant to go. One moment of unchecked anger can destroy a lifetime of trust. One wave of discouragement can cause you to abandon a dream that was still unfolding. One flare of jealousy, insecurity, or fear can make you step off a path that was built for your greatness. That's what happens when you anchor your life to emotions. They rise, they fall. They change by the hour. But vision is steady. Vision holds when everything else shakes. Vision is your compass in the storm. Let me be real with you. Life is not going to feel good all the time. Some days you will be tired. Some days you will be misunderstood. Some days you will want to quit, not because the calling is wrong, but because the feeling isn't right. That's why anchoring the vision is non-negotiable. Your emotions are temporary, but your assignment is eternal. You can't afford to abandon a permanent calling for a temporary feeling. You can't throw away a lifetime of purpose just because you're having a bad week. Think about this. Have you ever gone to the gym when you didn't feel like it? Your body said no. Your mind made excuses, but your vision said yes. And by the end of the workout, you felt strong. You felt aligned. That's what happens when vision overrides emotion. Now take that concept and apply it to every area of your life. Business, relationships, healing, purpose. You won't always feel like showing up, but when you're anchored to vision, you show up anyway. And every time you show up, even when you don't feel it, you build muscle, emotional muscle, mental muscle, spiritual muscle. Vision gives you consistency, and consistency is what builds legacy. You don't build anything great by being led by your moods. You build it by being led by your mission. Vision keeps you focused when distractions come. It reminds you why you started when fatigue sets in. It whispers, stay the course. When you're feeling scream, give up. It's the quiet fire inside that burns longer than emotion ever could. Emotion burns hot and fast. Vision burns steady and deep. Let's go deeper. You're in a relationship and the emotions aren't flowing like they used to. That spark isn't there every day. The butterfly's faded. That's when most people walk away. They say it doesn't feel the same. But wise people know that love is not built on constant emotion. It's built on consistent vision. You remind yourself, this is bigger than how I feel today. This is about what we're building together. This is about the family we're raising, the values we're instilling, the life we're designing. When your relationship is anchored to vision, you fight differently, you forgive faster, you stay longer because you're building, not reacting. In business, you will face failure. You'll launch something that doesn't take off. You'll make a mistake, lose money, or face criticism. And when that happens, your emotions will say, I'm not cut out for this. But vision says, this is part of the process. Keep going. I've seen people walk away from million-dollar ideas because their emotions convinced them it wasn't worth the fight. But those who win, those who dominate their field, they've trained themselves to stay faithful to the vision, not the feelings. Even in your personal growth journey, you'll face this battle. You'll start working on yourself, healing, breaking cycles, letting go of old habits. And then one day, out of nowhere, you'll feel like you're going backward. Old patterns return, old thoughts creep in. You feel discouraged. But that's not the time to quit. That's the time to anchor deeper. You remind yourself, I'm not doing this for today's feeling. I'm doing this because I have a vision for who I'm becoming. I see the healed version of me. I see the disciplined, the focused, the free version of me. And I'm not letting this moment talk me out of that destiny. Emotions lie. They're not always rooted in truth. They're rooted in perception, pain, hormones, or history. But vision, real, clear, purpose-driven vision, speaks from truth. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't change with the weather. It's locked in. It knows where it's going. And when you live anchored to that, nothing can move you for long. Here's the secret most people miss. You don't feel your way into vision. You commit your way into it. And when you commit, emotions follow. Eventually, the feelings catch up to the focus. That's why the most successful, the most disciplined, the most peaceful people aren't emotionless. They're vision-led, they feel everything, but they don't obey everything. They cry, but they don't quit. They get angry, but they don't burn bridges. They get scared, but they still move forward. Because their anchor is not in the moment, it's in the mission. So when chaos comes, when you're tempted to throw it all away, when your emotions tell you that you're not enough or it's not working, ask yourself, what is my vision? And is this moment serving it or stealing from it? Then breathe, refocus, and get back to building. Because your emotions will pass, but your vision, when truly anchored, will last. So now you know. You are not weak, you are just untrained. And every storm that has come against your peace, every battle that has tried to hijack your mind, has been nothing more than an opportunity, an invitation for you to rise into your mastery. Mastery of your thoughts, mastery of your breath, mastery of your emotions. You were never meant to live at the mercy of life's chaos. You were meant to rule in the midst of it. You were meant to stand while others collapse, to think clearly when the world is fogged with confusion, and to carry peace like a shield in a world addicted to noise. Hear me, when you master your mind, you master your moments. And when you master your moments, you master your destiny. You don't need perfect conditions to be powerful. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You don't need everything to go right. You just need to decide once and for all that you will no longer be governed by what's going on around you. Because what's going on inside of you is stronger, deeper, unshakable. That is the power of a trained mind. That is the fire of intentional living. The enemy of greatness has never been failure. It has always been emotional instability, because a broken mindset will sabotage a blessed life. You can have the talent, the opportunity, the connection, but if your emotions rule you, they will rob you. And you know that's true because you felt it. You've seen what happens when fear makes decisions. You've watched people give up diamonds because they got tired of digging. You've watched people walk out a purpose because they let their emotions drive them off course, not because they were weak, but because they weren't anchored. That ends now. Make the decision today that you will be the thermostat, not the thermometer. You will not just reflect the temperature of the room, you will set it. When the world panics, you'll breathe. When people lose their heads, you'll keep yours. When pressure mounts, you'll rise. Because your mind is not your enemy, it's your servant. It was designed to be led, not feared. And once you take the reins, there is nothing, no delay, no betrayal, no heartbreak, no storm that can stop the person you are becoming. And I need you to remember this. Emotions are loud, but vision is clear. Feelings fade, but purpose remains. What you feel in a moment is not worth forfeiting what you're building for a lifetime. So when the pressure comes, and it will, don't collapse. Don't cry for the exit. Look it in the face and say, I was built for this, because you were not made to break. You were not made to run. You were made to lead, starting with yourself. Say this out loud. I will not bow to my emotions. I will train my thoughts. I will command my atmosphere. I will master my mind. Say it until your fear begins to tremble. Say it until your anxiety begins to retreat. Say it until your mind gets the message that you are not a victim. You are the architect. You design your peace. You build your strength. You anchor your soul. Les Brown once said, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Start today. Start with one breath, one pause, one act of discipline. Because your future is not waiting for perfect feelings, it's waiting for perfect focus. And the moment you stop chasing motivation and start cultivating mastery, everything changes. Tony Robbins said, it's not the events of our lives that shape us, but our beliefs about what those events mean. So change the meaning, change the narrative. That setback didn't destroy you, it developed you. That betrayal didn't break you, it built you. That storm didn't drown you, it trained you to walk on waves. Now walk with your head high, your mind clear, and your spirit grounded. Because your next level is not found in louder emotions, it's found in deeper control. The storm may still be raging around you, but now the storm within you is still, and that right there is what makes you unshakable. That is what makes you a force. That is what separates the noise makers from the history makers. Not talent, not money, not opportunity, control, discipline, peace, power. The ones who lead their minds are the ones who change the world. And that includes you.